Okay, I'm here to introduce our next speaker. We have Dawaune Lamont Hayes. He's founder and director of Noise, North Omaha Information Support Everyone, a community news initiative based in Omaha, Nebraska. He is a visual and programming artist with a degree in journalism public relations from Creighton University. Hayes is engaged in the civic life of his community and believes that mindful creative expression is key to effective communication and participation. Let's welcome Hayes.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining me. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about noise, but then also the focus of this is how art and journalism can come together to strengthen engagement overall. So Noise, North Omaha Information Support Everyone, actually started just this past April. And with the help of Internews, if some of you might be familiar, it's an international news organization that works across the world and the country on helping communities and countries start news organizations. And so there was a team of journalists that came to Omaha last summer as a part of a collective called Listening Posts Collective. And essentially, they did interviews with stakeholders in the community, including myself. I was serving as a communications manager at a local art nonprofit. And in that process, they essentially put together an ecosystem assessment report showing us, like, what are assets, what are kind of, what are some challenges the community is facing, and then what are outlets that we could begin to work with to compile and get information out and address that gap. And so after that, there was some local funding from a local foundation called the Whites Family Foundation that put $25,000 toward funding something that can begin to use that report and ties within the community to get something started. And so I left my position at the as a communications manager and joined forces with the Omaha Star, which is the oldest only Black-owned newspaper founded by a woman in the country, and Mildred D. Brown, and Mind and Soul Radio, which is a radio station at the Malcolm X Memorial Foundation. Malcolm X was actually born in Omaha. So all these pieces and forces came together and we came up with Noise. And so with that, one of the first things we began to tackle was print. So the Omaha Star is 80 years old this year, just turned 80 in July, and it's running like an 80-year-old newspaper. And so one of the very first things we started doing was like, how could I use my background in graphic design and illustration and the community reporting that we're doing and make it exciting and interesting. And so as an artist and working in a part of a cohort of artists in the community, I was thinking, like, why don't we use art to make print cool? And so this is what we did. This is our very first edition. It's our Power Edition. It actually came out right before our primary elections in Omaha. And so the first thing we talk about is like when primary elections are. And I illustrated and did the watercolor of the initial image. Because when it's folded, and actually have some print editions, so I'll give everyone a copy of every edition, and you can take that home with you. That's the first thing you see on the fold, and just the reaction of people saying, like, oh, this is obviously different from anything I've seen before, really gave us a clue into, wow, like, this is something that can actually get people engaged. And I'm the local artist on it, but something that we started to do moving forward was I do the lead illustration here. So this is so we have our it's not working like I want it to. There's our second edition here. We got a brain bloom. I'll pass them around to you. And then we started on the back of the issues featuring other local artists of color as with art that relates to the topic. So each edition has a subject. Our first was Power, our second was Thrive, and our most recent is Ready. And so each back issue has a local artist that embodies that topic somehow. And so there's another one. I made this for the Power Edition. And then we had this Black Panther illustration commissioned for our very first edition, because I was like, I want something powerful that stands out. And Black Panther had just come out in February, and we knew that if we're talking about power in a community and getting the voice and representation and innovation, Afrofuturism, you can get into all kinds of nuances. We knew that we wanted something effective like that. And so as we move forward, I tried to pay every artist. Some have just donated in kind because they're like, we love what you do, and our grant funding ran out. And we're actually currently applying for new grants, and we're really close to getting some, so fingers crossed. But it just makes the art more attractive. Something I say is like, even if you don't read any of the stuff inside, which we really hope you do because we worked really hard on it, you still have art that's representative of your community. And and we've also considered that there are people in our community who are illiterate, so they can at least have art that they can connect to, and that evokes the essence of what we're discussing. And then we've established agreements with the artists that we can do print reproductions of the full color print reproductions and sell those for proceeds as a way to fund Noise, and then we can give a percentage if they agree to, if they would prefer to the artists. So we're able to support local art and journalism at the same time. I'm currently working on putting the web store up on our website so that people can purchase them directly and then have posters and prints and all those types of things. But this is just one way that we've worked with the community at large so that everyone is represented. Visual art is also a form of storytelling. And as we are in a visually dominated culture with social media and online presences, we can use print in a unique way to engage folks. So I have these editions. I'll start passing them out, but I'd love to answer any questions or just kind of have a dialogue about what we've been doing. So, oh yeah. Thank you, actually.
Did you have any copy about challenges with the Black Panther cartoon monetizing that on the internet? Is there any type of additional leadership?
Actually, it looks like the current Black Panther, but there's enough different illustrative differences to not be associated with it, if that makes sense. So like there's enough significant differences in this costume and the character that we were able to kind of shrug that. I wouldn't recommend doing it with all of them, especially because of the context that we use them in. But we're also not monetizing it in a exorbitant way. It's like $10. We try to make the poster. We want all of the art to be as accessible as possible, and it's a donation, so we don't sell it. You provide a donation to Noise, and we can send you a print. Yeah, and that's why we only did this. We only did this one illustration. For the rest, it's all original. They're all this is a wholly original piece because they sketched it for us, and there was a whole iteration. But moving forward, we're working with pieces that have already been produced, or ones that are specially produced for Noise. I draw the lead illustrations, so the ones on the folds, and then on the back, we commission local artists. And so the Black Panther edition is done by Michael Barnes and Legendary Arts in Omaha, which is a cohort of comic illustrators. The second edition, our Thrive, is by Gabrielle Gaines-Lewaru, and she was actually an art teacher in my middle school, and then later we reconnected, and that was really awesome. And then in our Ready edition, the back was done by a cohort member of mine. His name is Gerard Pafung. I'm like, why can't I think? Gerard Pafung, and he actually contributed that to our radio station for a fundraiser. So we were able to really build these relationships with local artists, and then make art more accessible just by printing it and putting it directly in people's hands. Yeah, so it started with me putting calls on Facebook, being like, who wants to contribute to this thing that we're doing? And we got a lot of great feedback from there. And then since then, as we've been able to prove our efficacy with print and then increase our presence on social media, and we're actually working on a radio show right now, people have been hearing like, oh, I heard about Noise. Yeah, that's awesome. Like, how do you get involved with that? I'm like, literally, you can just contribute. And they're like, really? Like, yeah, like, what are you passionate about? Something I've said to my team, I'm the only person on our team with a journalism degree. Everybody else is from the community, and they're just passionate about something. And I believe that everyone has a story to tell, so everyone is a journalist. And it's just about like practice. I might have a degree, but I'm not a seasoned journalist by any means, really. This is kind of the first time I've really been published since starting Noise. And I have a Medium account where I self-publish, but it's been a lot of just ground game for me, learning how to interview effectively and good questions, and engaging with North Omaha, which is a historically African-American community and a center of civil rights movements in Omaha and Nebraska, but now is growing in diversity and is actually one of the largest resettlement sites in the state of Nebraska for Karenni refugees. We have the largest population of South Sudanese outside of South Sudan, a growing Syrian population, Taiwanese, et cetera. So, and then also we have an older white population and a growing Latino population. So it's this beautiful microcosm of of people mixing together, and we're trying to find the best ways to begin to represent this in our news.
I'm wondering why the choice to go for a print version of this when a lot of it's moving towards digital, just extra charges to printing. What was the reasoning behind it?
The print really came out of our relationship with the Omaha Star, with it being an 80-year-old newspaper, and I have an edition of it actually. It might have, it might have got passed out. So I'll just kind of show you what their front page looks like. And then it's just like print. So like drastically different from our presentation. And that's because their newsroom is really small. There's actually no newsroom at all. Everyone is a contributor or syndicated content. And so, and they don't really have the funds to pay local journalists. And so as a project working under a nonprofit, we can raise money and grants to sustain and provide commissions to contributors. Right now they're volunteer, but as we move forward, we're constantly finding ways to pay our contributors, because that's incredibly important. Journalists deserve to be paid, artists deserve to be paid, creators deserve to be paid, or compensated for their time fairly, and right now it's money. And so we went with print because people kept saying print's dying, print's dying, print's dying, but it's just about re-engaging it and making it special. And within the Power Edition and the Ready Edition, we actually put a voting directory in there based off of, it gives kind of like a tree of the candidates that were up for election, particularly in Northeast Omaha, the area we're focusing on. But it's applicable to the whole city. It's a really handy graphic that gives you definitions of what these offices are and learning more about these candidates. So it's North Omaha information so for everyone, using North Omaha as the context, but understanding that this could be applicable to the city at large. And print's just a cool way to do that.
Did you see an increase in readership or engagement after you guys started working on this, or did the community recognize you guys more?
Particularly with the Star, one of the biggest challenges working with the Star is that since there's a limited team, there's a limited way, there's limited measures of what their readership. And so definitely when I've gone out in public and interacted with communities, especially older folks who still remain subscribed to the Star, they're like, oh, I've been seeing this insert, who is that? And I'm like, that's us, actually. And they're like, oh, that's really cool. We're glad to see the Star is doing something different. Just because we've been used to the same process over the last few years. And so I'm actually meeting with the editorial lead of the Star next week to start talking about 2019 and how we can begin to invigorate the current Star with the experiments that we've done with Noise, so that the Star itself can reflect kind of the design sensibilities and also the journalism that we're exemplifying in the print. Yeah, it's distributed as an insert, and then we get overrun prints, about 2,000 of them, and then we hand distribute them, or we do a specialized direct mailing based off of voter data, kind of depending on what the issue is. We try to focus it and send it to parts of the community that we think might be most impacted. That way we can like kind of call, follow up, and see like, is this useful? And then next week, my team and I are doing some deep canvassing with about 150 editions, and we're just gonna deep canvass our neighborhoods. So I'm just gonna go up and down my street and be like, hey, you might have seen me, here's the paper. Is this useful? Would you like more information? Like, would you wanna see more of this? Or is there more coverage? And then get story leads from there. We think that whenever I present the paper, explain what's going on, and then ask, people are always more than willing to tell, like, this is what I want to hear more about, this is important, or I don't like this at all, send me a text, you know? So it allows us to really explore our formula as we grow. Kind of, sort of. I really want to keep the paper free. And so we're talking about how to do that. Right now the star is 75 cents. So it's not like a ton of money or anything, but I mostly just want to inform how the star evolves. And having it as an insert with the star and keeping that association, I think, is really important. Noise is a project, not its own entity. And as we partner with the radio station and the star, and we grow and we can start attributing funding, we really want to see kind of all of these mediums merge into a media group is our ultimate goal. That represents, encompasses kind of the essence of North Omaha, but then continues to grow and reach the rest of the city. So. Sweet. Well, thanks, y'all. If you have any more questions, I'd love to talk to you more about it. You can find us and follow Noise at Noise Omaha on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We also have a Medium. I'm trying to work on that, in noiseomaha.com. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Okay, so